Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. It is Mental Health and Motivational Monday, and I have a special guest from another lifetime ago, really. Paul, and I just call you Paul M. How do you pronounce your last name anyway?
Michailidis.
Michailidis. It's been a while. So the last time that we saw one another was probably, what, would you say 8 years ago? Somewhere like that?
Probably a little bit longer than that.
A little bit longer even, maybe even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'd say 10.
10 years ago, which is awesome, which is why I love this podcast, because I get to communicate and reconnect with people from what feels like another lifetime ago, right. Which it kind of was. I mean, when I first met you, you were DJing. You were the house DJ at Barking Frog, London, Ontario. Mm-hmm. Different owners, different vibe completely at that point in time.
Right. I can't remember the first time I met you.
You can't remember?
I can't remember.
Well, it was in the middle of a bar anyway.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
I remember because I was just getting an interest in DJing. I'm going to move you closer to the mic a little bit. But I was just getting into DJing, and you were on, like, at this point in time, it was the ones and twos. We had the wax under our hands there. So, like, this was buying from dancerecords.com or Release Records or wherever you went, actually paying at least $10 for a fucking record.
Yeah, 10 to 15.
$10 to $15. So that's for one fucking track back then. Yeah. So you kids don't know how good you have it if you're DJs now. I mean, we used to have to lug this shit around too, right?
Well, it's basically free now.
Yeah, exactly. Basically.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get busted for copyright infringement,
then you're good.
Then you're good.
Look out SoCan.
Yeah.
I think they used to go around and bust people.
Oh, yeah?
I heard, yeah.
Really?
But no, so now I remember. It was at, I think you had a house party.
I had a house party?
Yeah.
That sounds very much like me back then.
And so I came with David and Amy.
And with Jonathan.
She was in a rush to get over there.
Oh, right.
to
this was when I lived Colburn and Pall Mall.
That sounds about right.
Above the variety store.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, we had, because that's when I met her at that point in time.
Okay.
And that was,
she must have known you.
She knew me, and I had met, but the same thing. I think I met, and we talked about Hatiris before.
Right.
I think it was actually him that was spinning there. I went to see him with Tristan, who you know.
Okay.
And then I think I hit on her. She was the bartender at the time. I think I said something really extremely cocky that shouldn't have worked, and it did. And then and it all went from there. Right.
Of course, it worked.
So Paul is with us this evening. He kind of reached out to me because he saw what we were doing with the mental health. Saw that we were starting a podcast. You are involved in the tech world as well. Why don't we talk about what you're transitioning into from DJing? Because the last time that we really hung out, we were both still DJing in and out of the nightclub game. What's happened since then? Tell me about it.
So I don't quite play anymore.
Yep.
I would say directly after doing clubs, I started doing weddings.
Yep.
And
that's where the money's at.
That's where the money was at.
Right.
It wasn't quite as fun. It was a lot more challenging, right? Because you have to appease to all sorts of walks of life, children,
right.
Adults, elderly, male, female.
Yeah.
So I forgot who said it, but some famous DJ said, if you want to practice crowd building, then do some weddings. That's,
like trying to read the energy, you mean?
Read the energy and reciprocate and
right.
and work together in that way. So
did you find that helped you at all?
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think I more so did it because I knew I was getting older.
Yeah.
I know all the younger kids were taking over.
Right.
And it just seemed like a way for me to stay in the scene without leaving, kind of just, I guess, maturing or whatever.
Right, right.
So did that for a while. Didn't last. Well, no, I mean, I would still do them sparingly, right? So it eventually ended up being like once a year.
Yep. Like and once a year, you do a wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing a wedding.
Yeah.
And then so got out of the DJing world, got back into the band scene.
Right.
So joined a band and started.
What was your instrument that you played?
Guitar.
Yep.
And drums.
Okay.
I would say, yeah. So I love like electric guitar, ripping solos and whatnot. And
yeah.
Even though that's kind of dying now.
It is kind of, you were a dying breed. Yeah, for sure. Well, the DJs are, it's funny because we were onto the right fucking track.
Yes.
The DJs are now the rock stars on stage, and they don't need a band. They just need to be themselves.
Now, there's still a market for bands.
Absolutely.
But I would say the era of the guitar solo is gone. I mean, so you'll still see bands performing live nowadays with electric guitars, but you'll never see that 10-minute solo anymore.
Right.
Right. You know, Hendrix or whatever. And so, anyway.
Do you think that's because the kids aren't learning how to do it, or because there's just a lost interest for it?
It's style, man.
Yeah.
Everything keeps evolving.
But that feels like it's devolving. It doesn't really feel like it's evolving to me.
Well, I mean, music in general, all styles, right?
Right.
And you'll see, like, looping or whatever, like, you know, the 80s will come back in the 90s, whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, music, how we knew it, anything, how we knew it is changing.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. So, you know, you just can't really get attached to it, I find.
Sure.
You just have to ride the wave. Or if you want to get attached to it, then you'll live in the past, and that's what most people do.
Right.
You know, like every generation you see that. It's like, oh, you kids and your rock and roll. And, you know, because, you know, before that generation, it was like 60s.
Right.
Jive or whatever, you know, so.
You make a good point, though. I mean, if you want to stay sort of relevant, you have to change with the times.
You have to. And it's tough.
Would a lot of people call that selling out to some extent? I mean, if you look at, for example, David Guetta, you remember the stuff that he used to play compared to when he started doing things with Rihanna, and like a lot of people call that selling out.
Would you call it? I couldn't quite relate because I'm not in that position.
Sure,
you know
absolutely, I mean? Right? But we can sit back and critique.
Sure. In terms of my personal preference, I mean, I would just base it on what I want, you know? So if I want to stick to what I truly love, then I'll do that. But then it may not be considered selling out because maybe you can just see that you just want to follow, I don't know, maybe you grow with the industry.
Yep.
Maybe you evolve with it. It's not necessarily selling out. So I
Sure. It's totally up to the individual.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know.
So you got back into the band thing for a little while. You were a guitarist, a little bit of drumming.
Mm-hmm. And then production as well.
And production. So this is the newer sort of, or did you...
So I kind of want to do, like, I love all sorts of music.
Yeah.
So I want to do everything, man. I want to do a country tune, singer-songwriter, jazz, blues, EDM.
Yeah.
A movie score, maybe.
Really?
Yeah. Like
very cool.
I love it all, man. But I'm just going to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to start with like the kind of singer-songwriter, folky sort of thing. Maybe add some, incorporate some EDM into it.
Yeah.
At the same time, maybe make some EDM tracks. I have a friend where I'm living now who him and I really work well together.
Yeah.
So it's great to spend time with him.
And he is someone that's done a few things. You're mentioning
he does a number of things. Yeah.
Right.
He's like a film guy for the most part. So he goes all around the country and film stuff, and met a lot of interesting people. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's what's cool about Toronto. You know, you meet a lot of people who have done cool things. And
sure. Yeah.
You know,
which you did.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and you moved to Toronto a few years back.
Yeah, let's just say 2 years ago.
Sure.
I think it's almost 2 years ago, but roughly 2 years. Yeah, and so when I moved there, and that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So I moved there and experienced a little bit of a culture shock.
Okay.
You know, because I was born and raised in London.
Yep.
Got used to this, and you know, let's face it, it is a small town, relatively speaking, right?
Sure.
So got used to it, you know, then moved there, and things are a little bit different. People are a bit more tough.
Okay.
You know.
How so?
They're, you can't get away with certain things, you know, like, if you have issues inside of you, people will call you out on it.
Okay.
Easier. More so.
Okay, so they'll call you out more. Does that mean that they are harder on you, like get over it a little
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. So, okay.
Maybe it's just like, come on, get up with us.
Yeah.
Get up here.
Okay.
It's a different pace. You know,
Right.
Nobody knows they're doing it.
Right.
It happens.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Interesting insight.
Yeah. But why don't I go ahead and talk about why I wanted to be here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want me to sort of explain that you?
Yeah. Go for it.
So for those of us that are tuning in right now, Paul sort of saw that we were doing some mental health stuff on the Soulfire Sundays with Scott and with Paulie. You kind of wrote a message saying you liked what we were doing and wanted to contribute. Mm-hmm. And I really, by the way, appreciate you being here because I didn't know this, but you made the trip from Toronto to be here. I just assumed you still lived in London.
I should have told you.
That's okay. You know what, dude? That's totally okay.
I have a habit of not
letting people know.
Yeah,
that's okay. I do that too. You assume people follow your life, right?
Well, it's not that. It's just like
I know, but sometimes it slips your mind.
It's not thinking. Yeah.
So Paul came from Toronto. You hopped on the train. You came here to be here for a Mental Health Motivational Monday. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that. I am planning on getting around to the Toronto crew next season.
That would have been cool if you came too.
Yeah, I'm planning on
next time.
Yeah, I can still make a trip by, but you reached out to me, so I'm going to give you the floor, and you can just kind of gear this however you want, because I have not heard this before. This is fresh to me as well. Mm-hmm. Cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, so born in London, Ontario, East End, EOA.
Which stands for East of Adelaide, for those of you that don't know. It's apparently the rougher area of the city. Yeah, that's what the reputation is.
Yeah, or at least that's what I like to believe.
Yeah, okay.
So great childhood, innocent, all that. Everything was great. Never experienced any sort of trauma. Was never sexually abused, right? So I had a great childhood.
Yeah.
Then at around 12 years old, I was in my last year of, or 13, let's say. I was last year of elementary school, took up smoking.
Yep.
Because it was something that I was always fascinated in, right? Like I would always pretend like I was smoking.
Right.
When I was a kid.
Right.
I used to love those Popeye cigarettes.
Yeah, I did too.
Did you?
Yeah,
and
those are the best.
I would moisten the end of it so it would become weak so that I could bite it off easier.
Yeah.
And that would simulate the shrinking of the cigarette and I'd put it out.
Right.
So I was really into it.
Right. Yeah, you really were.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, got into that, smoked for about a year, almost a year. And then one day after school, was walking home with some friends, was about to light up. And then I see my parents drive by and just that, I got that sinking feeling, pit in my stomach, butterflies, just instant anxiety.
Right. Did they see you?
They did, and I'm sure they knew at the time. I'd like to believe they didn't at the time.
Right.
So anyway, got in, and they're like, what were we doing? I was like, oh, no, it was nothing. I was just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I came up with something, right? So
sure.
I lied.
Yeah.
And I guess I got away with it. A year later, freshman year of high school, my conscience caught up to me.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I believe it was.
Yep.
To this day. I'm still working that out with the shrink that I'm seeing now.
Okay.
So yeah, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I was depressed. Was it anxiety? It was probably that too. It's tough to distinguish between the two. They're very closely related.
Right.
But
anxiety and depression, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's just say depression, right?
Sure.
It manifested in the form of guilt. So I felt extremely guilty.
All over the fact that you lied to your parents.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we can get into why in a bit. Anyway, got it off my chest. Felt a lot better. I would say 90% better. But
so you told them that you smoked at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I felt 90% better, but there's still that 10% that was like, what's going on here?
Right.
And so another day later, it kind of came back, this time with some other issue.
Okay.
And so if I can make the analogy, it's kind of like there was this void in the pit of my stomach in the form of butterflies where something would be on my chest. I would release it, and then that void would kind of suck something else in to fit its spot there. It just seemed like there was something always to be guilty about, and I would get it out, and something else would make me feel guilty. I'd get it out, and so then that pattern kept happening for a number of years.